To divide by a fraction, just multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so what's a reciprocal? The reciprocal of a fraction is just the fraction turned upside down. Whatever was on the bottom is on the top in the reciprocal, and whatever was on the top is in the bottom on the reciprocal. Okay, so to divide by a fraction, you just turn the second fraction upside down and multiply instead of dividing. How does that work? Well, it has to do with the way that division and multiplication are the opposite thing. Suppose I have 3 apples. They don't look like apples, they look like circles. Suppose I have 3 pizzas then. And I want to divide them into quarters. How many quarters will I get? 3 divided into quarters. Well, if I divide them all into quarters, evidently I'm going to get 12. Now, a lot of people get confused when they divide by a fraction and end up with a bigger number than they started with. But of course you are, because the thing you're dividing by is smaller than a whole. And if I'm dividing by something that's smaller than a whole thing, I'm getting up with multiple pieces, more pieces than I started with. Okay? So, notice the divide by a quarter is really the same as multiplying by 4, isn't it? Dividing the pizzas up into quarters gives me 4 times as many pieces. Exactly the same way, if I had my 3 pizzas and I was dividing them up into fifths, how many pieces would I have? Well, I'd have 5, 10, 15. Or I could just go, it's 3 times 5, making 15. This is the reciprocal. So let's try applying the algorithm to some simple examples. First one, a half divided by a quarter. So now instead of starting with a whole, or 3 wholes, as I did in my example just a moment ago, I've now got a half divided into quarters. Well, what does the method say? It says, turn the second fraction upside down. Whoops, that's not right. Let me try that again. Turn the second fraction upside down and then multiply instead of dividing. Well, now it's easy. 1 times 4 is 4. Wait a minute. I can see a common factor first. Both of these are divisible by 2. Once, twice. So I've got 2 over 1, which is just 2. Let me see if I can draw you a diagram to help you. This was a half divided into quarters. So I've got a half, and I want to divide that up into quarters. How many quarters go into that? 1, 2 of them. So let's try the next example. A third divided by 2. Well, this is really a fraction, 2 divided by 1, so I can turn it upside down and multiply. 1/3 times a half. Okay? So, no common factors, multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. People often get confused here. I was dividing by 2, let me put that back to how it was. I was dividing by 2 from a third and ended up with a bigger number. Oh, but wait, the bigger number's on the bottom of the fraction, which means 1/6 is in fact smaller than 1/3. Again, let me try drawing a diagram to help you. I had 1/3. That's a terrible diagram. I'll try again. Alright. I had 1/3. And I want to divide it by 2. So if I divide it into 2 and only keep 1/2, What fraction of the whole have I got? 1 out of 6. Alternatively, look at the way we did when we did multiplication. 1/3 times by 1/2 leaves me with 1/6. Third example, 3/4 divided by 3. It's going to be very similar to this one. It's going to be 3/4 multiplied by the reciprocal, 1/3. Now I can see a common factor here. Well, 1 and 1 leave me with 1/4. Now, of course, you probably thought that already. I had 3/4 divided by 3 is going to give me 1/4. Once more, let me draw a diagram to help you. I have 1, 2, 3/4 divided by 3. And I only want one part of that. 3 out of 12. And 3 out of 12 is the same as 1 out of 4. I would have got 3 out of 12 if I hadn't simplified that first. It's also exactly the same as 3/4 times 1/3. Let's try some more. 3/4 divided by 2/3. Well, that's 3/4 times by the reciprocal. Are there any common factors? Well, there sort of are, but not on top and bottom, so I can't actually cancel any. I've just got 9 out of 8. Now that's a perfectly good answer, but if you prefer a mixed number, you could write 1 and 1/8. Okay, 9/10 divided by 1 3/5. This time I have a mixed number. I'd better turn it into an improper fraction before I try turning it upside down. 9/10 divided by 1 whole is 5/5 plus 3 makes 8/5. Okay, now 9/10 multiply by the reciprocal, look for common factors, divided by 5, divided by 5, and I've got 9 out of 16. Our final example has two mixed numbers, 5.5 divided by 5 3/8. Well, convert the mixed numbers to improper fractions. 5.5 is 10 11/2 divided by 5 3/8. 5 times 8 is 48 plus another 3. Alright, multiply by the reciprocal. 8/43. Can you see any common factors? Yes, I can. These are both divisible by 2. So, 1 and 4. So I'm going to end up with 44/43.